Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Daniel, and I am with Pluralsight, and it's my pleasure to kind of kick things off and help moderate a little bit. We have a really exciting webinar today. It's all about Google Cloud Professional Data Engineer Certification. And we have a really great panel of experts. We have 3 certified experts that are here from Google Cloud, and they're going to talk about how you can kind of begin your journey to certification. So they've got a lot of great content, and if this is something that you've been wanting to do, then this is the place to be if this is what you've been considering. So before we get into the bulk of the presentation, I just kind of want to touch on a few housekeeping items. So if you have any questions that arise, then feel free to ask those questions and we'll pass them along. The panel is planning to do a Q&A toward the end of the webinar today. So please, as those questions come up, don't sit on them. Feel free to ask those, and hopefully we can get those questions answered. Also, another question that we frequently do get is, are we recording the presentation today? And we are. So if you're joining us via Zoom, we will actually send you an email in the next, usually a day or two after each webinar. So just watch for an email with a link to the recording. We're also streaming this on a handful of different social channels. So if you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, then the recording will be available immediately on that channel. So if you want to share it with a colleague, or if you missed a section, that's a great way to do so. And with that, I don't want to keep blabbing on. I want to get to the meat of the conversation today. So I'll turn it over to our awesome panel to get started talking about Google Cloud certification.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and welcome everyone. We are very delighted to be here with you and talk about the Professional Data Engineer certification. So welcome to our webinar. My name is Magda. I will be your host today. I'm the global lead for Google Cloud certification, go-to-market at Google Cloud. And I'm delighted we have 2 experts with us, Brian, who's the solution architect data engineer at Google Cloud. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning.
And Joel, solution engineer, Cloud Solution Studio, also at Google Cloud. Welcome, Joel.
Hello, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Likewise. So let's take a look at our agenda today. First, we are going to talk about certification benefits. Then we'll review the learning resources and Google Cloud certifications. Then we'll cover certification success stories with Brian and Joel. We'll also review some of the sample questions, and then we'll recap with additional resources as well as the Q&A portion. So feel free to ask your questions throughout this webinar. So let's start with certification benefits. So we are really curious to measure impact of the certification program within our community. So we are very happy to report some data that's the survey that our certified community has participated in. So we can see how 78% of respondents feel more confident in professional future. 82% of respondents can prove cloud skill competency to recruiters. 83% feel that their resume is more attractive. And then finally, 85% feel more confident in cloud skills. So that's really the value that our certified community perceives out of achieving a certification. When it comes to some additional benefits you may enjoy by achieving a certification, you can distinguish yourself with a Google Cloud certified badge and a certificate. You also receive exclusive Google Cloud certified swag for our professional level exams. You can network and exchange ideas in the Google Cloud certified community. And then finally, you receive some special recognition at select events. Another area that's also really interesting and important is benefits of certifications according to IT decision makers. And we are referring to here to some results of an externally available study. I think the first interesting data point is that in the last year or so, pretty much 2/3 of the training budgets that were authorized, they were actually approved so that the team can prepare for a certification or recertification. When it comes to the value of certifications, 93 of the IT decision makers who participated in the study agree that certified employees provide added value above and beyond the cost of certification. And then finally, 63% of respondents say that the economic benefit of certified employees exceeds $10,000 a year. So now let's take a look at learning resources and the actual portfolio of Google Cloud certifications. And we wanted to start with acknowledging how the Google Cloud and the overall cloud technology requires a new approach to learning. And with Google Cloud, we build learning programs that are really transformative. They really support you as you grow in your job role through all variety of learning formats, from on-demand to hands-on labs and ultimately certification programs that provide a benchmark for skill set in a given job role. So as we mentioned, our certifications are proficiency and role-based certifications that provide a benchmark for success. So it's a high bar. It's really defining what an excellence in a given job role is, and it's really very worthwhile to strive for it if this is your job role. So here it is, the overall portfolio of our Google Cloud certifications. Today, we are focusing on the professional data engineer certification. And this is just an overview for you to know how our overall portfolio looks like. Our recommendation for the professional level certifications is to have 3 years or so of industry experience, including a 1 year or so of hands-on experience with GCP. So the certifications are definitely for people who know the job and are validating the skill set and proficiency with a certification. Let's take a look at the overall learning journey, some of the resources that you can leverage as you prepare for your certification exam. So these learning journeys comprise of training resources, hands-on labs, and recently launched skill badges, and also other resources like sample exams or study books. So right now, let's have a bit of a deep dive into leveraging Pluralsight resources on your preparation journey for the professional data engineer certification. So as you saw on the previous slide, the blue dots were the on-demand training resources. And on Pluralsight, you can find Google Cloud certification paths and certification channels, which include all necessary courses and preparation work on your certification journey. The last course in each certification path provides specific exam preparation material. And you are also able to calibrate what you know and where you can build by measuring your existing skill set by taking the associated skill IQ. And even higher, assess your role IQ to see what additional preparation you'll need to step into the particular role. So for sure, go to the role IQ for data engineer to help you identify any gaps and what skills you might build. So going back to our overall journey, I wanted to briefly cover a fairly new tool in the preparation journey, which are the skill badges. Over here, they are highlighted by foundational data, ML, and AI, as well as engineer data with Google Cloud. So very briefly, a Google Cloud Skill Badge is a digital badge issued by Google Cloud in recognition of your cloud competency. They are provided via the Quick Labs platform, and they consist of some quests with a challenge lab. Another preparation resource on your professional data engineer certification journey is the actual official study guide. And now let's take a closer look at the actual professional data engineer job role. So a professional data engineer enables data-driven decision-making by collecting, transforming, and publishing data. A data engineer should be able to design, build, operationalize, secure, and monitor data processing systems with a particular emphasis on security and compliance, scalability and efficiency, reliability and fidelity, and flexibility and portability. A data engineer should also be able to leverage, deploy, and continuously train pre-existing machine learning models. So this is straight from our certification website, and you may wonder even more in depth, what are some of the core domains that are covered by the exam? You will find the full certification guide on our website, and here is just a summary of the core points. So the professional data engineer exam assesses your ability to design data processing systems, build and operationalize data processing systems, operationalize machine learning models, and ensure solution quality. A bit more information about the exam itself. It is 2 hours long. It is multiple choice and multiple select. There are no prerequisites. And as mentioned, we do strongly recommend to have a real-life, hands-on industry experience to approach the exam. When it comes to the exam delivery method, you can take the exam either in person in a dedicated testing center, as well as remotely via the online proctored exam system, and highly recommended to check the FAQs beforehand. And in both cases, whether you are approaching your exam in person in a testing center or remotely at home, we strongly recommend that you book your exam in advance to assure that there is availability. And now I'm delighted to transition over to our certification success stories section, where we are going to have a conversation with Brian and Joelle about their experience preparing for the exam, what is the value they are experiencing, and some of the tips and tricks of successfully passing this exam. So welcome again, Brian and Joelle.
Thank you so much, Magda.
Great. So Joelle, tell us a bit about your daily role.
Yes, so I'm a solution engineer on a team called the Cloud Solutions Studio. And what we do, I really love it. We really look to our customers and our customers' end users and consider the full user journeys that you may it's a really, really great role.
Wonderful. How about you, Brian? What is your daily job? And you are on mute.
Well, in case anyone was wondering if this is live or not, there you go. But hi, my name is Brian Suck. I'm part of our global solutions architecture team. And as one of the data engineers on the organization, our role is to work with customers and sort of step back and look at the bigger picture from an engineering perspective on how to look at different business challenges that our customers are facing and create new solutions and work in conjunction with our customers to try to figure out how to take different pieces of the Google Cloud platform, stitch them together, and create unique solutions to solve those problems. Also, currently I'm on rotation with google.org, actually doing some implementation work on a data platform. And so now I'm on the other side, sort of as my own customer and actually doing the work and stitching all this stuff together. So seeing it from both ends is pretty interesting.
Thank you so much. Indeed, this is a live session. We did get some feedback. We might have lost audio from Joelle. Joelle, would you mind just very briefly sharing about your daily work?
Yes, yes. I don't mind at all. So I'm on a team called the Cloud Solutions Studio, and it's a really creative team, a creative role where we look at our customers and our customers' end users and consider various user journeys. We look at challenges experienced along those journeys, and then we take Google Cloud Solutions and really build out narratives and use design thinking and storytelling to show how Google Cloud can solve for those challenges. And it's a technical role because of the solutioning involved, and a very creative and speaking role as well because of the narrative piece of it. And it's really great and I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, could you tell us about your motivation to approach the exam?
Sure. So part of it was being a practitioner for a while in the data engineering space and wanting to sort of give back. So one of the things that I've also participated in was actually authoring some of the questions as well. And so when trying to help design the exam, really wanted to both challenge myself in order to make sure that I knew what was going on in the broader data space, as well as to help in conjunction with a broader team, be able to help set that standard of what the certification process looks like and where that, where that sort of bar is going to be set. And one of the other things that I really wanted to do was challenge myself to go into broader solutions that I may not have typically gone into just in my day job itself. So for example, just by way of professional experience, I've always been a data warehousing, business intelligence kind of engineer, and things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, and a lot of these new predictive analytics areas were things that not necessarily were things I would have naturally or organically gone into, but by forcing myself to venture into these categories and really learn them and be an expert in them, really broadened my horizons. So that was another reason why I decided to take it.
Thank you. How about you, Joelle? What was your motivation?
Yes, so my experience working within the cloud space and data was similar in that it was along the lines of data warehousing and so on. And so I kind of saw the certification as a way to display my ability to be well-rounded, and also to display my certification really in cloud at a professional level. So prior to preparing for this exam, I really was using a lot of the tools. And so this also gave me a deeper dive into like the academic and the theory part of it, and broadened my horizons.
Wonderful, thank you. So let's talk about the actual exam preparation experience. What was it like? What resources did you use? How did you structure it? How about you, Joelle?
Yeah, so the exam preparation experience involved me pulling on my experience. So looking through the content of the exam, I was able to do my best to match that content to what I had actually experienced in my roles and using Google Cloud tools. And it also involved on-demand courses and hands-on experience and practice with tools that I hadn't used in my roles, because I really wanted to have that perspective going into the exam. And something I also really am an advocate for is taking practice exam and benchmarking yourself, and then using any gaps that you identified through that benchmarking to craft a study plan that kind of allows you to make the best use of your time.
Excellent, thank you. And how about you, Brian, and your preparation experience?
Sure. So a broad portion of my preparation, actually, I had the benefit of just kind of being in the space for a while, and so a lot of the core concepts that we're examining do kind of fall into the experience that a lot of data engineer practitioners will just naturally have by way of that. Now, that being said, it's not, I don't think it's an absolute mandatory, because there are different tools that do enable you to learn a lot of this, this kind of material. So the course material on online platforms such as Pluralsight will give you a lot of the core foundational expertise that you need when you deep dive into certain different topic areas like security, like core data movement, when you look at vulnerability scanning, and you look at artificial intelligence and machine learning. And in the more advanced courses, it also does teach you how to start to stitch these things together. And so that's Pluralsight, and the reason why we partner with Pluralsight is because it does offer a lot of that deep expertise that is being passed down through a lot of these practitioners, and the experience that has been gained collectively. Now, I do think it's part of a multi-angle strategy, and that you do also need to get broader hands-on experience with the platform itself. And so when you combine it with things such as quick labs, and you look at the different tutorials and actually getting your hands on keyboard and actually running the commands and seeing how they all work together, I think when you take the core foundational knowledge that Pluralsight will give you, and then you start putting that into practice in a controlled lab environment, that sort of 1-2 punch is going to give you a lot of what you need to prepare for it. The last thing that I will also mention is the idea of not just testing on individual components, but rather figuring out how they all work together is a key theme that's also being examined during the data engineer certification. And so one of the things I wanted to point out is cloud.google.com/solutions. Once again, that's cloud.google.com/solutions, plural. And those are a series of reference guides that have been published for common design patterns. And they do split off into both conceptual reference guides for just thematically what are best practices, what are some things to look for when designing certain types of data architectures. And they do also offer tutorials as well. So once you learn things from Pluralsight, once you look at the conceptual reference documents, you can then look at the tutorial reference guides, and actually, again, another avenue of sort of putting hands on keyboard and getting that real experience to see how this stuff deploys out together.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. So how about some tips and tricks? What are some of your tips and tricks to successfully pass the exam, Joel?
Yeah, so one of the major things that I would say is a huge tip, and Brian actually alluded to this earlier, is getting as much hands-on experience as you can. And specifically when it comes to working through online exercises in quick labs and so on, I would definitely recommend looking at the commands that you're typing, and if you're clicking buttons within Google Cloud Console, like really understanding what you're doing and why, and then understanding if you did something differently, what would the result be? So that when you are approaching the exam, you'll be able to think more holistically, and you'll be able to really think from a solution angle. So that is my biggest tip, along with definitely benchmarking yourself. I feel like that is a really way to be efficient with your study if you benchmark yourself.
Thank you, Joel. How about you, Brian? Any tips and tricks?
I think I actually went over a lot of them accidentally answering the previous question. The one thing that I would add is to sort of change the mindset in which you approach studying for this. And one of the things that I would want to caution on is not to necessarily look at things like documentation and all this learning collateral from the perspective of, hey, I want to learn how this particular parameter works just for the sake of that parameter, or I need to memorize this list of options for this particular command or this API. That's really not the point. The core question you should constantly be asking yourself whenever you deploy anything, or you try to put two components of the platform together, is asking yourself, why are we doing this? And how does this answer the key business problem? So all the examination questions typically do revolve around trying to solve some sort of problem. So when you do end up having to get into the nitty-gritty and you look at some sort of option or some sort of flag in a parameter, if you're always answering if you're always looking at that through the lens of how is this answering the business problem, then I both think it'll make a lot more sense and it's a lot easier to remember that way. So I definitely recommend always asking that question and looking at it through that perspective.
Thank you. It's a great tip. So how about the business impact? How is the professional data engineer certification helping you in your daily job, Brian?
So in answering one of the earlier questions, I did mention that it forced me to broaden my horizons and learn about different things. And so just through my daily job, I do have to interact and work with and partner with a number of different customers in a lot of different industries that I never would have thought I'd be working in. And what I've learned, and one of the benefits that sort of came about unexpectedly, is the fact that now I'm just better prepared and I'm more knowledgeable about recommending solutions to my customers when they do encounter things that just, again, I never would have encountered it if I just had not taken this exam and forced myself to learn in different subject areas. Also just the added benefit of having that credibility of being able to say, yes, I've passed this bar. And, for lack of a better way of saying it, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Definitely helps in the day-to-day job that I'm currently in.
Thank you. How about the business impact and some of the benefits in your daily job, Joelle?
Yeah, so on my end, we work with solutions and we look at customer and user journeys. And so part of that is definitely data management. And specifically, I focus on security, and I have worked in the healthcare solution space as well, where data is really key in those spaces. So being deep in data and preparing for this exam, having the experience using the various tools definitely puts me in a position to build on top of that and build creatively on top of that. And I'm able to know the technology well because of the certification, the experience, and the practice, and know in a business context how to actually apply the technology as well. So definitely I reap benefits from it regularly, and I definitely feel like it has definitely amped up my ability to be a great solution engineer.
Excellent. I do see some live questions as well, so maybe let's add them to our little interview segment now, and then we can also take extra questions at the end of the webinar. So just to continue the conversation, there is a question from Aaron, who's watching on LinkedIn. Hello, Aaron. For those of us who have no work experience but are deliberate about our studies, how can we get our foot in the door if experience is expected? Brian, what would you say to that?
So I think it's just looking at example scenarios and just practice, right? So if you look at the curriculum in the Pluralsight materials, if you look at the later sections of it, it starts to go into looking at how you design data pipelines, how you look at holistically architecting these things together, and things to look out for, which is definitely going to be useful. And of course, things like Quick Labs is definitely going to help you get that hands-on experience, even if you're kind of walking into this brand new. The other thing, and I'm going to plug it one more time, is the cloud.google.com/solutions page. And I think that's important because the data engineer certification typically revolves around things like use cases that come out of actual customer implementations and actual business problems that customers have tried to solve leveraging the Google Cloud Platform. And likewise, a lot of the reference guides that come on that solutions page were actually originated from real customer use cases that the engineering team has partnered with our customers to solve on Google Cloud as well. So that's going to be, if you're looking at a wide variety of what customers are trying to do and how they're being solved, that's a really good place to look at.
Excellent, thank you. We have another question. Is this certification oriented to any specific type of professional like data scientists? What would you say to this, Joelle?
Is it specific to any role? It's really across the breadth of data engineering. And so there are parts of the data science job role where the certification would test your skills on Google Cloud technologies. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily a data science certification. And I did want to add one other really helpful resource that I think would help with the previous question. So there's a solution site, and then there's also cloud.google.com/customers. In case you don't have any direct experience, I think looking at customer stories and really looking at the challenge that they faced and the resulting solution may be a really helpful route for you as well. And on the cloud.google.com/customers, you can filter by the data products. So hopefully that helps in the area where experience would help as well.
Excellent, thank you for adding. And there is another question. Is this certification a prerequisite or helpful for the Google Cloud Professional Architect certification? So as we know, there are no prerequisites in this world. However, how about the relationship between potentially professional data engineer and cloud architect? Brian?
Yeah, so as Magda mentioned, they are independent of each other, although the subject material does have a heavy overlap between the two. So there's definitely going to be extra things that do not intersect. So things like machine learning, AI on the data engineering side versus core DevOps and core networking and a lot of things on the architecture side, which don't overlap. Although there still is a large Venn diagram intersection of things such as just really, how do you best architect out key data pipelines? We'll have a lot of infrastructure that does overlap between the two. And so by studying for one, you will get a head start on the other. Although I don't want to make it seem like you're studying the same thing for both, but there is a heavy overlap on the deep down infrastructure side.
Great. Anything to add, Joel? I know you are actually a professional cloud architect certified as well.
Yeah, I would definitely plus one that there's a good, strong Venn diagram, but this data engineer deep dives into the data tools and processes more than I would say the cloud architect does.
Excellent. Thank you both for the Q&A interview part. Again, dear audience, we are happy to answer more questions towards the end, because right now we will be proceeding with the sample questions review. So our experts stay with us and we'll go a bit deeper into some of the sample questions you may encounter at the exam. So Joel, this one is for you.
Yes, so this practice exam is regarding a startup that has been building their business, focused on maybe other parts of their technology and so on, and never really implemented a formal security policy. The company employees currently all have access to data sets in BigQuery, and the teams are using the service as they see fit and not really documenting exact use cases. So as someone on the team, you've been asked to secure the data warehouse. You need to see what everyone's doing and then move from there. And the question asks, what should you do first? So I think one of the key things here, or two of the key things I'll point out, is the question itself says, what would you do first? There are a number of things that you would need to do in this situation to be able to secure the data warehouse, which was your ask. But to get started, what do you need to do? So that's really key. And the other part is right before the question, which says you need to discover what everyone is doing. And so with that, this touches on audit logging and cloud audit logs, which enable you to be able to look into your organization and understand data access and data use. So that would be the way that you would approach securing your data warehouse first. And then from there, you can use your business needs and knowledge to then create a more secure program across the organization.
Excellent. Thank you so much for reviewing the logic here. How about our second question, Brian?
Sure. So again, keep in mind one of my earlier statements where I mentioned it's always talking about business scenarios or end user scenarios and looking at it from that lens. So the question here is looking at a real-time data warehouse where it looks like the incoming data will be delivered in a at least once delivery paradigm, which means that you cannot control necessarily how many times the original source system is going to send the data, or likewise, how often the particular message bus is going to be delivering that to the end subscriber of that data before you put it into your data warehouse. And so it does give you some insight into what the uniqueness of that information is going to be like and how it's going to be time-stamped. And at the end of the day, it's really asking you how to deduplicate this data so that you don't have it replicated multiple times when you try to query it. And this is where you start having to looking at it. Always look at the broader use case from the end user's shoes. And so this kind of scenario is not uncommon for things such as retail, where you have multiple transactional systems all feeding a single data warehouse. It's also not uncommon for IoT scenarios. So when you think about, let's say, connected trucks in a fleet of delivery vehicles, and you have spotty internet reception in rural areas. And so you have these beacons that are going to be broadcasting information. And due to network connectivity issues, it might be broadcasting it over and over and over, which means for whatever reason or whatever industry you're looking at this from, the bottom line is you end up having duplicate data in your warehouse. And so this is a scenario that's commonly found for people who are in ETL development positions, who are in business intelligence reporting positions. And so from here, now it's also looking at, if you're thinking about it from implementing BigQuery, how do you handle that with this particular technology? So again, it is getting into a little bit of the nitty gritty on the particular mechanics of BigQuery itself, but really what it's trying to figure out is how do you tie this, how do you look at this and try to solve the bigger problem that it's really asking for? And so because it's not uncommon in those particular use cases, as long as you can handle how to design to those use cases, chances are you'll be able to answer this question. And for the record, the answer is to use the road number window function by using the partition, and then using the ID and then just having it pull it where the row number equals 1, because then you group it by ID number, and then you get just one row from each of those different unique clusters. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both. Great insights and really making it actionable, as well as showing the business impact and the customer use case. So we are going to wrap up here with some additional resources, starting with, we invite you to start your certification journey today. So please leverage all the wonderful resources available on Pluralsight. Study, get your real life hands-on experience, and then do register for the exam. And we will be looking forward to celebrating your success. And we wanted to leave you with a special offer. If you are interested in the additional study resource of the Professional Data Engineer Study Guide, we do offer a 50% discount until the end of the year. You need to visit thewiley.com and use the promo code GND50. So that's a 50% off the book cost, also available as an ebook and available for you until the end of the year. So with that, this is a thank you for the presentation part, and we will take a look at the chat window again to see if there are any other additional questions. Let me check. This one we have covered. All right, I see a question. I am a database engineer. According to your experience with these two paths, which of them could be better to me in terms of my experience gained? I believe this still refers to the professional cloud architect path. So Joelle or Brian, would you like to address this?
Yes, I can address it. I would definitely recommend taking the practice exam and seeing how you feel with the data engineer practice exam. And based on that, then maybe you can also take the professional.
Yeah, we got the audio challenge, unfortunately, again. So we can either try again, Joel. Could you unmute? If not, maybe we can.
Yep. So I'll see if I can try to pick it up,
Yes.
hopefully, see if I
Thank
can
you.
capture what she's trying to say. It does seem like if your background is in database engineering, then the likely path will be the data engineer certification. So the guidance would be to try taking the data engineering practice exam first, and then give the practice exam for the architect a shot too, and then just see which one feels better to you. It's likely that the data engineer will be the one that's more suited to you, but it's worth trying both.
Thank you. In the meantime, we got a question. Is any programming language like Python proof to fit this GCP data engineer title, talking about best fit career-wise? Brian, would you mind?
Sure. So with the data engineering certification, there's no hard requirement that you know any particular language. I think the only one where it's probably going to ask you certain query parameters or certain clauses is probably going to be SQL that BigQuery is going to be using. So like the example question that I showed, sometimes you'll just have to know some of the SQL syntax for that, but it's not expecting you to be, a JavaScript expert or a C++ expert or anything like that. I would probably say and this is not company byline by any means, this is just kind of Brian's own personal 2 cents. In the data engineering world, I just personally have found that Python is the most common, if anything, just because it's a common choice by data scientists. A lot of the machine learning frameworks have a lot of Python libraries, and so it's just a language that I encounter the most often. But again, there's no, for the examination and for career fit, I don't believe there's really a hard requirement for any particular thing.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you both Joel, Brian, for sharing your expertise, really making it so very practical and sharing from your own experience. Really appreciated. Otherwise, I think that's what we wanted to share with you all today. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for your questions. And I will hand it over back to Daniel.
All right, thank you so much. Just so much good content covered today, and I know that everyone that's attended has got to feel pretty good, because I feel like you just really nailed kind of next steps and how people can feel better prepared for this. So thank you so much for doing that. Just a couple of quick reminders to kind of finish things up today. If you were joining us via Zoom, we will email you a link to the recording of today's presentation. If you're joining us on another platform, then once we're done, you can just rewatch it right there. We do also have additional webinars scheduled with Pluralsight. And the easiest way to find out about those is to sign up for our email reminders. If you go to the URL pluralsight.watch, it will take you right to a form where you can fill in your email address and learn about our upcoming webinars. And with that, I wish the panel here today and everyone joining us a great rest of their day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.